Hello, welcome back to Hydroponics Daily. Today I'll be talking about alternatives to rock wool in NFT hydroponic systems. So rock wool, also known as mineral wool, was originally developed in the construction industry as a thermal and acoustic insulator, and it's normally treated with a hydrophobic outer layer to prevent it from sucking up too much water, and that's what you put in your loft and keeps your home nice and cozy, also sprayed into your walls and things like that. But it was found it was able to hold lots of water and, crucially, also lots of air and allow roots to develop through its matrix of fibers. So mineral wool is made into slabs or blocks and contains in a waterproof sheath, and it's commonly used in NFT. But there are a number of disadvantages associated with its use. So plants grown in NFT can be prone to fungal disease. The medium is not really reusable like other hydroponic media, and poor quality grow media can generate high pH values above the optimum for plant growth. So you need to be careful with that. And so you need to soak it before planting is ideally. Glass wool is a similar product that is sometimes used as an alternative grow media to mineral wool, and uses silica as a starting ingredient instead of limestone and basalt that's used in mineral wool. So it could be more expensive. But if you're interested, see if you've got a local supplier of glass wool and look at that. Mineral wool is normally disposed of after 1 or 2 cropping seasons. So that's normally straight to landfill, or in some very bad situations, it's just dumped and buried on site. So that's not environmentally acceptable. And so you go down in the south of Spain, you see a lot of the polytunnel covers as well, just buried into what is environmentally sensitive areas, as well as a lot of interesting flora and fauna around. So that's not cool. So in other countries around the Mediterranean Sea, they use low density volcanic rock such as tufa or tuff. That can be commonly used in NFT and locally sourced, and so cheaper than mineral wool and very easy. And then I talked in the past about how the US Army were the first to actually commercialize hydroponics and use it at scale during the Second World War. And there they used locally sourced inert grow media, such as volcanic rock. So if you're on a volcanic island in the middle of the Pacific, you could use that for hydroponic growth, or desert sand as a medium for root growth. And so they can all be used. And then man-made products, quarried material, this sort of stuff that's blasted in a furnace. There's an emerging field of organic hydroponics. So strictly speaking, not organic, but synthetic free and free of man-made materials, as it were. So they don't use mineral wool or synthetic fertilizers or pesticides, and cocoa fiber is normally what they use, but they can use sand, tuff again, pumice. They're all organic grow media that are suitable for hydroponic cultivation. The beauty of sand and pumice and tuff is that they can be reused, cleaned, and can be steam sterilized. You can remove the roots from them. You can burn the roots off them as well, because you're not going to get sand to the point where it's going to melt. So I said that sand is going to be the next grow media I'm going to try my spring onions on, because they're just not loving cocoa. So there are some disadvantages of cocoa. It's not as environmentally sound as some people might make out, and that's because of the CO2 released in getting it to where it needs to get to. But certainly causes less environmental contamination. Perlite and expanded clay clay granules and beads is an option. They can be reused and sterilized, but vermiculite and perlite can break down and release toxic aluminium ions at low pH, and so it's not ideal for hydroponics. I've certainly seen aluminium toxicity in a lot of my plants where I've been growing in just perlite. The other disadvantage of perlite is that it's dusty, and that silica dust can get into your lungs and you can have a real problem. So always make sure you use one of those fabulous COVID face masks during its use. You should always use a face mask really when you are potting plants up and using, especially like bagged compost, anything like that, because especially if it's wet, because you can get Legionnaires, or certainly farmer's lung if it's decomposing. So you need to be really careful, especially in Australia, where the grow bags get really hot for a long period of time. There's a lot of reports of Legionnaires in hot countries, from especially developed hot countries where they're buying grow bags. I suppose in the developing countries, it's not really reported. If someone dies of Legionnaires, it's hard to determine that, isn't it, really? So expanded clay granules were very popular Not so much. You don't see them in as many or as popular in grow shops as you used to. And they're produced at very high temperatures in kilns at 1,200 degrees Celsius. And they have a crystalline structure that's very porous. It's low density and it can be used in NFT production. It can also be used for houseplants as well. But more commonly, the clay beads are used in ebb and flood hydroponics. And you need to be careful because they're not all made equally. There are some really high grade ones and there's some really low grade ones. Some of them are like shattered. Some of them are like pure balls. Go to your local grow shop, ask them what's the best one that they sell. And there are a number of different suppliers of those. So if you've got an ebb and flood system, they'd be good to look at, but equally NFT, you could use them. You would need to make sure that your roots do get into the fertigation solution because it's not going to be drawing up as much of the fertigation solution as a rock wool one is. The beauty of rock wool is that once you put some moisture at the bottom, it soaks through to the whole of the matrix, whereas clay beads, that's not going to be the case. So you need to make sure that's why it's better in ebb and flood systems because you don't need to rely on that wicking. Zeolite is another volcanic rock that can be used. It's got very large particles and can hold a significant amount of nutrients and at its surface. So it's normally mixed with other non-organic media. Zeolite, I think, is the same stuff that's in cat litter trays as well. Very absorbent. You can use polyurethane foam as a grow media. It's chemically inert. It can be steam sterilized, but it's a man-made plastic. So there are problems of disposal and, issues around using virgin plastics for growing plants. Polystyrene beads, the same, can be used in a similar way to perlite, but are much more durable than mineral wool. Can be reused and sterilized, chemically inert, not broken down by extremes of pH. So probably more robust than rock wool. Polyester fleece is used in microgreens, and so you get a lot of wool as well in microgreens in NFT systems. And recycled fibers, recycled textiles, very common now in where you don't need much grow media, where you just want to have a very young plant and harvest it. So leafy greens, recycled textiles are very popular. The problem is that they can't be recycled again. So it's almost like it's using someone's greenwashed and said all our plastics, all our textiles are recycled, but they go into this matting. Leafy greens are grown on them maybe once or twice, and then they're just landfilled. So you need to be careful on that. But they're certainly an option for small plants. You couldn't grow a very large plant on just capillary matting unless that was the base through which the fertigation solution dripped, and then you had like potted plants on top of it. So capillary matting is used in ornamental nurseries to deliver fertigation solution and also to mop up any runoff and allow plants to just soak back a bit more if they've dried out a bit too much during a day where they've got a lot of evapotranspiration. Shredded rubber tires have been tested as a potential grow media in hydroponics because tires are a problematic waste. But unfortunately, the results weren't great. And I've certainly not seen anyone shredding tires and selling that as grow media. If you could, it would be very good because you'd have people paying you to take the tires and then you'd have people paying you for the grow media. So that would be a win-win, but unfortunately not at the moment. And there's a lot of contaminants, a lot of, think of the chemicals that go into making a tire. Yeah, the vulcanization of all that rubber and things like that, I don't think it would be great for your health. There'd probably be a long-term health risk, especially if you had extremes of pH. And all of those ones above, they can be blended and you could mix and match various ratios. That's the beauty of hydroponics. You can make your own bespoke mix, just like my sons do with their breakfast cereals. And you could have, say, a bit of matting at the bottom. You could have some expanded clay particles with polystyrene bits or cocoa. 60-40, isn't that what 60-40? Yeah, that's 60% cocoa beads, 40% cocoa. And that was invented for hydroponics, not so much NFT, more just standard overhead irrigation, fertigation, or passive systems like autopot systems. And that's a very, very lightweight and airy grow media. So that's a good hybrid mix. But there's plenty of options. If you've got a local source of one of those things that I've mentioned, it might be a way to cut down on your costs, cut down on your grow media. Grow media prices are crazy high at the moment, especially for bagged grow media and for rock wool and things like that. So the more the price goes up, the more people will be looking for alternatives. So that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Alternatives to rock wool and mineral wool for NFT systems particularly. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.